For centuries, sailors feared the open ocean not because of storms, but because of what waited beneath the waves. Long before satellites, sonar, or modern maps, the sea was an endless void, dark, silent, and alive. Ships vanished without explanation. Calm waters suddenly turned violent. And when survivors returned, they spoke of something impossible. A presence so vast it could be mistaken for land itself. Something that rose from the depths, wrapped its limbs around wooden hulls, and dragged entire crews into the abyss. This was not just a monster, it was a warning. This was the Kraken. The legend of the Kraken was born in the cold northern waters, where the sea feels older and more hostile. Norwegian and Icelandic sailors whispered its name with fear, believing that encountering it meant certain death. They described a creature so enormous that waves formed around its body even when the ocean was calm. Some claimed that when the Kraken surfaced, fish gathered in massive numbers, a deadly temptation that lured ships too close, right before disaster struck. Unlike many mythical beasts, the Kraken was never portrayed as fast or chaotic. It was patient. It waited. It slept beneath the waves for years, even decades, until hunger pulled it upward. And when it moved, the sea itself responded. Whirlpools formed where none should exist. The water drained as if swallowed by the ocean floor. To ancient sailors, this wasn't imagination. It was cause and effect. The Kraken rose and ships were lost. One of the most detailed early accounts came from the 18th century, written by Danish bishop Erik Pontoppidan. He didn't describe the Kraken as a fantasy, but as a rare animal, something misunderstood rather than invented. According to his writings, the Kraken was so massive that its back appeared like a chain of islands. Sailors would anchor to it, believing they had found land, only to realize their mistake when the island began to move. Descriptions of the Kraken varied, but certain details remained constant: massive tentacles, thick as ship masts, a body hidden beneath the surface, too large to fully see, and an intelligence that made it even more terrifying. This wasn't a mindless beast thrashing in rage. The Kraken chose when to strike. It attacked with purpose, not frenzy. In many legends, the Kraken didn't destroy ships by biting them in half. Instead, it pulled them down slowly. Tentacles coiled around the hull, tightening with unstoppable strength. Masts snapped, decks tilted. Men were thrown into freezing water, where the real nightmare began. The sea closed above them, and the Kraken returned to the depths, leaving no trace behind. Sailors believed that surviving an encounter with the Kraken marked you forever. Those who claimed to have seen it spoke of overwhelming dread, not just fear, but a sense of insignificance, as if humanity itself meant nothing in the face of the ocean's true ruler. The Kraken was not evil. It simply existed. And that made it far worse. The regions most associated with the Kraken were among the most dangerous routes of the ancient world. The waters between Norway, Greenland, and Iceland were poorly mapped, brutally cold, and unpredictable. To sail there was to gamble with death. Storms could appear without warning, and the depths beneath were unknown. For sailors navigating with stars and instinct, blaming a monster made sense. But the consistency of the stories raises an unsettling question. What if the Kraken wasn't pure myth? As centuries passed, the legend refused to fade. Instead, it evolved. Each generation added details, sharpened the image, and passed it on. The Kraken became a symbol of the sea's ultimate threat. Not a storm you could see coming, but something waiting silently below. Something ancient, something hungry. And the most disturbing part is this. The deeper humans explored the ocean, the more the legend began to feel less impossible. For centuries, sailors swore that something was watching their ships from the depths. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't delirium caused by the loneliness of the sea. It was pure fear. Tentacles rising from the water, thick as tree trunks, suckers clinging to the wood and refusing to let go, ships being slowly dragged downward while men screamed without understanding what was happening. That's how the name Kraken was born. A creature so absurd it seemed impossible. Too big, too strong, too monstrous to be real. And for a long time, science laughed at these stories. It called them myth, exaggeration, the fantasy of drunken sailors. The problem is that the ocean never cared what science thought, because today we know that something down there really did inspire these legends. And the more we discover, the more terrifying the truth becomes. In the depths of the ocean lives the giant squid, an animal that shouldn't exist. It can exceed 12 meters in length, with tentacles longer than a school bus. Its body is hydrodynamic, built for the abyss, and its arms are living weapons. Each tentacle is covered in suckers with serrated rings, small circular teeth that don't just hold on, but cut, tear, and lock the prey in place. Once grabbed, there is no escape. And if that weren't enough, the giant squid's beak is comparable to a parrot's, except designed to crush flesh and bone with ease. It's a perfect combination of strength, reach, and silent brutality. But the most disturbing detail isn't in the tentacles, it's in the eyes. The giant squid has the largest eyes in the entire animal kingdom. Each one can be as large as a dinner plate. These eyes don't exist by accident. In the deep ocean, sunlight doesn't reach. Everything is darkness, extreme pressure, and silence. These enormous eyes are designed to detect the slightest movement, any strange shadow in the black void. A fish, another squid, or something much larger approaching. And when you understand that, you realize something unsettling. These eyes weren't made to hunt small fish. They were made to see gigantic predators, something big enough to justify such extreme vision. And that something has a name. The sperm whale, the largest toothed predator that has ever existed on Earth. A monster up to 20 meters long that dives more than 2,000 meters deep. Down there in the giant squid's territory, one of the most violent battles on the planet takes place, completely invisible to us. Sperm whales hunt giant squids regularly, and giant squids fight back. The evidence is written on their bodies. Whales that surface covered in circular scars, perfect marks of suckers driven in with immense force. Each mark tells a story of struggle, resistance, and desperation in absolute darkness. This isn't a battle between a monster and a helpless prey. It's a duel between titans of the abyss. Now imagine this from the perspective of a medieval sailor. No sonar, no science, no idea what lies below a few meters of depth. A ship suddenly lurching, something pulling at the hull, water bubbling all around. Maybe the ship wasn't even attacked directly. Sometimes, a giant squid surfacing wounded, fleeing a sperm whale, would be enough to cause chaos. A tentacle emerging, thrashing, grabbing onto anything solid. To those on deck, this isn't an animal. It's a sea demon. It's the end. The Kraken didn't come from nowhere. It was born from the combination of the unknown and rare, terrifying encounters. And the most curious part is that even today, with all our technology, the giant squid remains one of the least observed animals alive in its natural habitat. Most records come from dead bodies found tangled in fishing nets or washed up on beaches. Videos of live giant squids are extremely rare and grainy, almost ghosts moving through the darkness. That only reinforces the sense of mystery. The creature that inspired the Kraken still refuses to be fully revealed. And here's a question that lingers. If this is the creature we know, documented and partially studied, what else lives down there? The ocean covers more than 70% of the planet. Most of it has never been explored. We know more about the surface of the moon than about Earth's depths. The giant squid was once considered a myth. Today it's a fact. How many other Kraken are still hidden, waiting for just one wrong encounter to become legend? The difference is that now, unlike the sailors of the past, we know their fear wasn't irrational. They didn't invent monsters for fun. They tried to explain something real using the tools they had. And maybe the Kraken was never a single giant animal destroying ships out of hatred. Maybe it was always this, a representation of the abyss, of what exists beyond our control, beyond our sight, beyond our understanding. A reminder that even in a modern world, there are still places where we are not at the top of the food chain. And in the final part of this story, it becomes even more unsettling. Because when you bring together science, historical records, and animal behavior, you realize that the Kraken didn't die with the legends. It just changed its name. Because when we talk about the Kraken, most people imagine a single, colossal, conscious creature, almost malicious. But the reality is more uncomfortable. The Kraken doesn't need to be a supernatural monster to be terrifying. It's worse precisely because it's real, biological, possible. The giant squid doesn't attack ships out of malice. It doesn't hunt humans out of hatred. It simply exists. And that may be the most frightening thing of all. An animal that evolved to live in an environment where the pressure would crush an ordinary submarine, where light doesn't reach, where survival depends on brute strength, extreme senses, and absolute silence. And unlike many predators we know, the giant squid doesn't need to be fast at the surface. It doesn't need to be beautiful or elegant. Everything about it was designed for a world we almost never see. Its long tentacles are meant to capture prey from a distance. Its serrated suckers ensure that nothing escapes. The beak cuts with surgical precision. And its nervous system allows for explosive movements when necessary. This isn't legend exaggeration. This is evolutionary engineering pushed to its limit. And here's a detail that almost no one talks about. Giant squids aren't the largest cephalopods on the planet. There is the colossal squid, heavier, more robust, with equally massive eyes and even more aggressive hooks on its tentacles. Less known, less recorded, even more mysterious. In other words, the animal that inspired the Kraken may not even be the largest representative of its own kind. That changes everything. Because it means the legends may have been underestimated, not exaggerated. Now think about this. An ancient sailor saw something surface for a few seconds. A tentacle, an eye, a massive shadow beneath the ship. He had no way to measure, compare, or classify it. The human brain fills in the rest. Fear fills the gaps. And when fear meets the ocean, myth is born. But myth doesn't come from nothing. It needs a real spark. And that spark came from the depths. Today, even with modern technology, sonar, submersible robots, and high-pressure cameras, we still know very little. Most encounters with giant squids happen by chance. They don't like to be seen. They don't come to the surface. They don't interact with humans. They live in a parallel world, beneath everything we consider normal. And that raises an uncomfortable question. How many times does something gigantic pass beneath a ship, invisible, undetectable, without anyone realizing it? How many stories were never told because no one came back to tell them? In the end, the Kraken is not just a creature, it's a symbol. A symbol that the planet still holds secrets capable of making us feel small, that we don't control everything, that there are places where nature still plays alone, without an audience, without witnesses. And every time we think we've seen it all, the ocean reminds us that we haven't. So the next time you look out at the open sea, that infinite blue, calm, almost inviting, remember this. Beneath that peaceful surface exists a world of pressure, darkness, and predators that don't need legends to be terrifying. The Kraken doesn't need to attack ships today to continue existing. It lives in the silence of the depths, exactly where it has always been. Watching, invisible, waiting. And maybe, just maybe, it's better that it stays that way. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. New stories, creatures, and mysteries are coming every week. See you in the next one.